Welcome to the Real Buffs podcast. I am your host, Charlie.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Calvin.
And this is our extra special episode, our sports movie draft spectacular. We're doing a little bit of a pivot here, as they'd say, as Ross would say on Friends, we're pivoting. So what we wanted to do, since Matt and I talked about this, we're big sports guys, and so is Calvin too. And I figured, we can get us all three together and do a big sports movie draft spectacular episode. So excited to do this because this is the first time we've been drafting, and obviously, if it works out well, I think there's plenty more drafts to do. Not just sports movies, we can do years, whatever it might be. So excited for this one. But yeah, obviously you guys are big sports guys, so we're going to talk about some of our favorite sports movies here. But I mean, tell me, what's your guys' just obviously relationship with sports, what you love, who
Toxic.
You love. Toxic. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, if the Bruins lost last night, this is about to be a 2-person podcast because I would have been hanging from the Zakin Bridge.
Wait a minute. Don't we face you guys in the Rages against the Bruins?
No, the Rangers the Hurricanes, and then the Bruins are up against the Panthers again, which we blew a 3-1 lead to them last year. So
good luck.
Oh man.
Good luck.
The toxic one. That's relationship with sports. Like my sports teams, I was talking about this yesterday. The Packers and Bruins have been in the same exact playoff game for the last 10 years since they last won a championship. They've played the same exact playoff series every year, whether it's losing to the Niners, whether it's losing in a game 7, which Charlie and I have a nice fond Stanley Cup game 7 memory right after I tore my ACL and we're hobbling around Boston and to the Blues. God.
Oh my God, dude. I got wasted that night.
We did.
It was like a bad wasted too.
Oh man.
It was just one of those rough nights. Yeah, man. I had some issues getting to the game yesterday. And I was just thinking, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to survive this because it's game 7 again. Here we go. And I just mentally, Matt, you and I did the same thing. We just mentally prepared ourselves to lose this game because it felt so Bruinsy.
It did.
Sure enough, overtime, David Pastrnak comes in with the OT goal, which was an awesome goal too. So
I was luckily great. Yesterday was Star Wars Day, and I had a way to mentally block my brain, because if I had to sit around all day and think about Game 7, it would have been just unhinged. My kids would have watched me sloppy drunk, falling down the stairs. I wouldn't have made it to game time. It would have just been bad.
Would have been a bad ordeal for you. Oh, jeez.
Well, Calvin, you were I feel like you were the one out and about watching sports yesterday too.
Oh yeah, I was. I basically went out with Nicole and I. We were just like, hey, all right, let's go to Jameson's. Let's go to the one in Culver City. So went there. We were watching the Denver Nuggets game, which I was kind of surprised about, but not totally surprised. And then we saw the Bruins game. Obviously, I was just like, I just wanted to see you guys just come up so that way we can eventually face you as a Ranger fan. So I was just like, okay, this is working out.
I mean, I am outnumbered 3-1. So obviously I'm living with one of the Ranger fans. I've got you two over here to deal with as well. So
yes,
yeah, that would be great. That would be great for me. But yeah, man, it was a good, I didn't get to watch the Nuggets game, but I've been saying all along,
the Wolves, man, they're sneaky.
Yeah, no, the Wolves have something going for them, man. Anthony Edwards is an absolute unit, man. He's serious.
He's doing what Jimmy Butler could not for the Timberwolves, man. He was like, I can't win with these cats, but Ant's out there winning with those cats. So
yeah, no, he's winning with them, and he's only been in the league for what, 3 years?
Yeah, and Rudy Gobert out there, showing his defensive skills. I mean,
he's been getting trashed a lot.
He has been getting trashed, but he's been a really good defender. So I'm interested to see how this series plays out, and if people are going to stop trashing his name a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if he was to prove something in this series, if he does well against Jokic, which it's a really hard task for any player, regardless. If he can do that, then you got to put some respect on that name.
Oh yeah, 100%. And honestly, I will say from a Celtics fan perspective, I'm scared of both teams out west.
I was going to say I don't want to play either of those teams.
Yeah. Sorry, Calvin. Not really worried about the Knicks. I'll be honest.
Well, listen, the Knicks are not quite there yet. I for the Knicks, which I was so hyped about, by the way. I went to Knicks at Manhattan Beach and I was watching the closeout game. I was like scratching the fucking just like table. I was just like, come on, don't do this to me again, Knicks. And then they were gathering up. And then I see like Josh Hart had that clutch 3-pointer shot, which was amazing. I was like, yes. And I was going off. And then afterwards, like people across the bar, they're like, wait, realize I was like, I can't. It was like, oh, okay, I get it. You're a Knicks fan, I get it. and then even the manager came. He was like, just tone it down. I get it. I understand. And then there was a whole bunch of Knicks fans that came in after that, and they were making more noise than I was.
Shocker, an East Coaster making loud noises over at a West Coast.
I know. I get yelled at all the time. Like, why are you so loud? It's like, dude, I'm from Massachusetts. We don't have a volume that isn't loud.
Right? Seriously, that's more like a Northeast thing, like a East Coast
we're just loud people, man.
Exactly.
Very much so.
All right, guys, let's get into the draft now too, in our sports movie draft. So I sent over some stuff to you guys. By the way, for the Google sheet, if you look on it and you click on the tabs on the bottom, there's a tab for each of our names. So make sure you're on that one. That's where you can enter your picks in. So
you didn't tell me there was homework.
Yeah. That's where we're going to put our picks in, Matt. We got to keep track of this somehow. All right.
Brother.
So I don't have the AI capabilities to afford to do that, to transcript the whole thing. All right.
Not yet.
I mean, I do on my work computer. I don't know if like that would go over well if I was using something like that with that, but anyways, so we've got that on the Google Doc or the Google Sheet. I've got rules to go over as far as this goes. And then we've got our wheel names to select the draft order. So first, let's go over the rules because there are some rules here. So we've got categories. That's how we're going to pick it out. Instead of doing movie genre categories, like doing it that way, it's sports. I figured let's divide it up by the sport. But as you start to dive into some of these movies and just all of the different choices we have, I mean, this is America. So do we have a ton of soccer movies? No, obviously not.
Is the big green a joke to you?
I mean, it is. It's got the same kid from the Patrick kid from Sandlot. It is kind of a funny movie. But anyways, we don't have like a ton. So what I've consolidated into, let's see here. We've got like 7 categories here. And first one is going to be football, American football, baseball, boxing/fighting. So that's going to include some of your martial arts movies and even wrestling in there too. Yes, wrestling is a sport.
That was the hardest one.
I got the perfect one for wrestling though.
Yeah, you actually called me at a great time for the wrestling/martial arts because I was actually talking to a Savate master. I'm trying to learn Savate, so I was like, okay, let's do this.
I don't even know what Savate is. All right, so that sounds like a
zero idea.
So Savate is a French kickboxing martial arts.
Oh,
it is sick. Like you can look at it through videos. You also can use like punches like in boxing, but it's mostly using your feet, and you have to wear. Usually, boots are the thing to wear, or shoes are what to wear because the kicks they're very sharp. So you can't. So however you kick, if you were to go like barefoot, I mean, if you're trained in it, then you could. But if you're starting out or you're just like intermediate and you're trying to use bare feet, that's not going to work out so well.
Oh, okay.
It's sick.
Interesting. It almost like, what's that other one that does a lot of kicks? Is it Muay Thai does a lot of kicks in that?
Muay Thai does more in knees. You can use more knees and elbows and things like that.
Okay.
But Savat is more. Actually, this is actually a great thing this is actually great because since Enter the Dragon is there, and I'll get into that, there's a relation between that Savat and Enter the Dragon and Bruce Lee. So as we get into that, we'll talk about that.
Save it. You might get to choose it. You might not to. All right. You never know how the draft is going to fall. All right. So, all right. So we have, as I said, so we've got boxing and fighting, and that includes wrestling, basketball, winter sports. As much as I wanted to do just hockey, there's not enough hockey movies, and there's other winter sport movies. So I figured we could throw it on there. Then we have documentaries / docuseries and wild card. Now, we'll go over some of the specifics of this, but wild card is a category where you can take any movie in that. You can take any movie from any category. However, there are some specific movies that are not in one of these categories. For instance, like when we're looking at wild card, we don't have any track and field movies. So Chariots of Fire would have to be only taken in wild card. Also for wild card, you can double up on any other category if you want to. So you don't necessarily have to take something that doesn't fit into a category. You could also double up and say, hey, I'm going to do Iron Claw and the Wrestler, and just go 2 wrestling movies because those speak to you. So that's where wild card comes in. A little bit different there. There's just not enough of those type of movies where it's like racing, and I'm talking about like racing and like, car racing or track and field or golf, where we can give them their own category. So we put them in the wild card. For documentary, those movies, all right, anything that is covering a particular subject matter. So Hoop Dreams, for instance, very famous documentary, basketball documentary, that can't be taken in the basketball category. Only a fictionalized or a feature film can be taken in the categories. So the sports categories, basically. Gotcha. So documentary has to be documentary, but wild card, you can also double up on documentaries if you wanted to. The documentary speak to you a little bit more too. And then for documentaries as well, I also included docuseries in there too. So if you wanted to choose The Last Dance or the OJ documentary from ESPN, absolutely, by all means. There's not I wanted to give us a little bit more choices and get more conversation going. So I thought it'd be a good idea to include those in there, and any of the ESPN 30 for 30 films. If those speak to you more, if the You documentary speaks to you more from the 30 for 30, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. I actually picked one. You're going to hate this one.
Well, don't tell us your picks yet. We got to go.
No.
Go
I'm not going to tell you. When you see it, you'll see it. You'll see.
All right. Okay. Now, this is the last rule that I have, is that if you choose a film that is part of a particular series, for instance, like Rocky or the Mighty Ducks, that whole series is out. You can't, we're not doing like, hey, I choose Rocky and then somebody else wants to choose Rocky too. No, you got to choose one of those movies from that series as a whole. So for instance, like if I did choose Rocky's off the table. You can say which Rocky you want to choose, though. Like if I'm like, hey, I want to do Rocky 4, cool, but the rest of them are off the table. That's it. However, I will say this. I am allowing for the exception within Rocky that Creed, even though it is technically a sequel, is out of it because it's more of Adonis Creed stories than his Rocky story. It's technically a sequel, but it's also like, if we get the chance to talk about Creed, I want to talk about Creed as opposed to Rocky. You know what I mean? So like we can talk about both. It's different movies. So that is the one exception I'm going to grant is that one specifically. Does that make sense though?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen and we will start, or we will get the order of the draft going here. So let me go into present mode.
Yeah,
Everybody can see that. All right, cool. We're going to click to spin, and this is going to determine the draft order. So
it's like Wheel of Fortune. Look at that.
Exactly. Wheel of names. Ooh.
That's crazy. This is so rigged.
All right.
What appropriate. What appropriate.
All right. So I got the first pick. Now we're going to spin with you two to determine the next. So
cool.
All right, Matt, you're going second.
That kind of sucks. You don't want to be second because then you don't get to get back to back.
Yeah. That's always a little bit of a difficult position to be in. All right, and Calvin, you're going to have the turn, so you get 2 picks at the end. All right. First pick. All right. So, man, I didn't anticipate me getting first pick. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
It was only 1 out of 3.
33% chance of me getting the first pick. But all right. With my first overall pick in the 2024 sports movie draft, I am picking Slapshot in winter sports.
Okay.
I am going to choose Slapshot because it is not only my favorite hockey film of all time, it is one of my favorite comedy films of all time. It's hilarious. Everything from the beginning of like when they're interviewing the goalie in it, and he's describing all of like the different penalties and just the Canadian accent. He's like, "Oh yeah, hooking. It's like this. You go grab the guy. He's like, yeah, and you go to the box and you'll feel shame." I just I laugh my ass off.
You're like halfway between Russian and Canadian.
Oh yeah, it's what it is though. That's what it is.
I thought it was like Canadian Irish. Like I was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's where I do well on my accents. Is the Canadian ones. Even though I'm part Canadian myself, I can't get the accent right. Anyways, it's one of the funniest movies. You've got the Hanson brothers, which is obviously, I feel like you go to any hockey game, you'll usually see somebody with a Hanson brothers jersey on.
Yeah.
You've got Paul Newman, obviously, as the player head coach, who's hilarious. And I've always had a good relationship with this film. I think I saw it when I was a little young, like maybe like 10, 11, and which is weird because, one of the things he says when he's mocking one of the players, he's like, "Hey, your wife sucks pussy." Just like, what the fuck? Not understanding it, obviously, back then, what it meant. And I'm like, oh, okay. Now, when I saw it when I was 21, different story. I was like, wow, that's hilarious.
Oh, man. We've had those moments.
Yeah. Oh, man. So I've always loved this film. And that's where I'm going to take that movie. So Slapshot for me under the winter sports. Have you guys seen that movie or do you not?
I honestly haven't.
I have not seen that movie either. I have not seen Slapshot.
Damn. So that's some bad command to the board for me. I could have probably gotten that as a 6th round sleeper, but listen, I just know that is a slim pickings and on that category. So I had to go with my heart. I didn't have command of the board there on that.
All right. That's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but man, I got to come out of the gate with the second pick and take a wild card right away.
Oh, come on, dude. What are we doing?
Yeah.
The 2004 film Dodgeball.
Wow. Okay.
I needed to take Dodgeball, man. It's probably one of my favorite it's so good, dude. Like I quote that movie all the time, and I mean, might have been a bad first pick on my end because it might have gone a little later, but dude, Dodgeball's like one of the greatest sports comedies of all time about a sport that just like you play in middle school gym. Like when's the last time you actively played dodgeball? And it's just the way the Globo Gym, Average Joe's, Vince Vaughn. I mean, you got Justin Long over there. It's like this nerdy. You got, Pirate Steve, just arg, I could do that. Is it necessary for me to drink my own urine? No, but it's sterile and I like the taste. It's just, come on, man. It's the best comedies. It's like up there in the upper echelon of comedies, especially in sports.
Oh my Lord.
We've talked about it at length too before already, because like we've already, we've talked 2004 so much here and like the different comedies that we've evaluated already. And yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites. I love it. White Goodman. I'm white. Wait, WHIT.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
I could quote that one all day.
Exactly.
You can dodge a wrench. You can dodge a ball.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Like, come on. Like 5Ds, man. It's a classic. I had to, just because it doesn't, in the wild card round, there's not a better movie to choose from, in my opinion. Like that's the number one wild card right there. And if I didn't at least snag it, it's one of those that's like, it's going to win you championships because of depth. That's what this does.
It does. All right, fine. It's going to win you championships because I feel like this draft is going like, that we're going like the 2000 draft where, we're leaving Tom Brady on the board.
This is a true wild card.
We've got like Giovanni Camarzi that we're taking first. Tim Couch. Oh no, Tim Couch, I think is whatever.
Yeah. Ryan Leaf has just gone first. And we're all wondering what we're doing.
All right, Calvin, you've got the turn, so you've got 2 picks.
Okay, so I want to get this one out of the way. This one's gonna be wild card. Got to get this one out the way.
Everybody's going wild card first. This is nuts.
It's the toughest one to choose from, man. Like there's slim pickings there.
Yeah. So I decided to do the I Hate Christian Leitner documentary.
Oh,
the one for his 30 for 30.
Oh,
and yes, because one of the reasons, like my main reason why is truthfully, and as a college player, I love Christian Leitner's persona. Everybody hated him.
Yeah.
Everybody hated him. And also, I have to say, also he's from New York State. So that's also a little bias over there as well. So
represent. Okay.
Represent. I can't help that. So watching that documentary and how they literally broke down like why people may hate Christian Leitner, from the perceived privilege of him going to Duke, or just that arrogant persona, or that seemingly entitled, like quote unquote white boy persona. And I was just looking at it, I was just like, you know what? It's so interesting to break this down about Leitner. And the thing is, he was winning those championships, man. You couldn't really beat him. He was picked over Shaquille O'Neal, for God's sakes, for the Dream Team, which
That's
still leaves Shaquille, which is insane looking at it now in retrospect. But when you look at it, I mean, he just came fresh off of winning, even though Shaq was like the main prospect, because everybody was saying Shaq was the guy to pick. But he just came off of winning an NCAA like championship, so it was like, all right, like you got to go with the college guy, you got to go with him. It's unfortunate that his NBA career didn't quite pan out the way that it was perceived to supposed to like pan out. But in terms of his college career, man, he's a legend. Loved it. I loved every moment of it. I loved it, and the thing is, he owned up to it. He never shied away from it. He was like, yeah, I was that guy. I was that bad guy, but we won. I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been a Leitner guy. I've never been a Duke guy, because I've always been a North Carolina guy. So
this was kind of hard for me too, because I obviously North Carolina, I love North Carolina, but in terms of Duke, I mean, oh man, Christian Leitner, and from New York State. Once again, I'm going to rub that in, and from New York State.
That's not really a rub in. I'll give it to you on that one. And there's so many better basketball players coming out of New York State than Massachusetts, though.
Oh, without a doubt, dude. Without a doubt.
It's got a few good
agree.
ones in there.
I agree. Just as a college player, like he's one of the best ever. He's one of the greatest ever. And come on, who could ever forget like that legendary stomp he had? Like on one of the I was like, you saw it because I knew about Leitner. I knew about his credentials. I knew about his story per se, but I didn't know how crazy he was, because obviously when he was winning, I was just, a year old, 2 years old. So looking at that, I was like, wow, like he was really just
He was
he was
Grayson Allen
insane.
before Grayson Allen was Grayson Allen.
Oh yeah, no, he was better. I mean, to
Just
have
with more talent, yeah.
he was better. To have a whole crowd, not for nothing, the whole crowd was literally saying homosexual, and it was like,
Oh, that's messed up.
yeah, I was like, and then like he's looking at it just like, but I'm still winning.
Yeah.
I know, right? Interesting. No, I got to ask you, Calvin. So why go with this in wild card, not documentary?
Well, the reason
Or if
why.
if you don't want to reveal that too, that's fine. If you don't want to give away your draft cards, that's totally fine too. So,
I mean, I personally think that it doesn't get enough love. I feel as though that's always swept under the rug, and I feel like it is a part of the whole Christian Leitner thing.
Okay. I respect the hell out of it, because that was like not one I had on the board. Like when I think of the ESPN 30 for 30 ones, that's I know of it obviously, but it's not one of like the main ones you think of. Like you think of typically like OJ or The Last Dance, like are the two big ones. But then also you might think of the June 17th, 1994 one, which is basically another OJ one, but there's a lot of sports stuff going on that day. It's really good. But anyways, I like it. You've got another pick though. So what we going with the second one?
Okay, so for the second one, you know what? Second one, I'm doing documentary again. It has to be The Last Dance.
Damn it!
It has to be. I'm
That's
sorry,
what I wanted to take too, man. If you didn't take that one, I was taking it right off the board next, because it's probably my favorite sports documentary of all time.
Oh, I think it's the greatest sports documentary of all time.
Yeah,
it's because, well, I'm gonna say it again. Michael Jordan was born in Brooklyn, so I'm very happy about that. But he was raised in North Carolina, though. We understand. I know. Before you go into that,
he doesn't claim Brooklyn. He's a North Carolina guy.
Yes, he did. He claimed it when he did the video with Spike Lee. He did it was a Crooklyn Dodgers. It was based upon that movie Crooklyn. He claimed
all
it.
Right.
So
all right, fair.
So you got to watch it. So okay. So Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player, best basketball player, and one of the most storied athletes in all of history. So him doing the documentary and really showing what it was like piece by piece each year from when he came in until that Last Dance season, it was epic. From the first episode that you're watching it, and then you see what he said, from like talking about Pippen being selfish in regards to him not trying to prioritize a team because of his surgery, his feelings on fame. I think it was very very well done, and it was very open for an athlete who, not for nothing, we all know Michael Jordan, he's not really going to be the most open of athletes. He's not going to be the most open nor the most talkative. He loves, even with everybody saying whatever they're saying about him, he still just says, hey man, I'm a billionaire at this point. I'm just playing golf. I don't care. But very well done. Hearing the perspectives of everyone, from his coach to hearing his rivals, and hearing other people who played with him as well, not only in that first three-peat, but in the second three-peat as well, which I feel like, the first three-peat, they were a great team. I mean, obviously the greatness shows in their record, but I think for what they were, I think they were great. There was a lot of competitiveness in that first three-peat, but in the second three-peat, they all gelled together because they kind of knew their place within the team. But overall, very well done, very masterful. Great display of just Michael Jordan's just emotions and thoughts about things. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was like, it also came out on a time like COVID. It was released during COVID. So like it was a cultural event because nobody was doing anything else. Like it really was like, it was one of those weird things. That
was like one of the best birthday gifts ever. April 19th, 2020, one of the best birthday gifts. 2 days after I was like, oh yes.
They dropped it early too, because they were going to release it in June, I think, after the NBA finals, but since sports was not a thing then, they were like, let's do it now. But I mean, I love The Last Dance. The soundtrack alone is just amazing. Though I wonder if Michael Jordan even have to pay for any of the rights to the song, because it's like, yeah, of course, like every hip hop artist is gonna be like, I get to be in a Michael Jordan documentary.
Yeah,
Here, take it for free.
Of course.
You know,
course.
even though, I mean, he's a billionaire and he can afford it, and he's not the only one financing it anyway. But anyways, no, I love that. It's one of my favorites. You know, the only thing is like, I will say this is like what it's created afterwards now is that like we've kind of come to this era with documentaries that we get the athlete controlled documentary, and it becomes more of a narrative.
Skews the narrative a bit.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the thing.
That's the only thing I don't like about it is like what it's created afterwards. That doesn't
Take away
say
from the documentary.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from that at all. It's just one of those where it's like, okay, you know, success breeds imitation. So like that's where it's kind of coming from. Because then we had the Brady one too that came out not too long afterwards, and that one, and then the Dynasty, which was a different one, but like, you know, it was still like centered around, hey, like two of the more successful athletes and franchises in American sports in that time as well. So
that's crazy because, you know, I'll say this, that documentary is kind of almost emblematic of Michael Jordan's career. What I mean is like Michael Jordan's impact on not only the NBA, like we could talk about that for days, but just in sports in general was just immense. The same thing with the documentary too. The documentary is just the same as the figure because it's just Michael Jordan's style, for better and for worse. Also, his style of play also had people kind of like trying to mimic his style, and it wasn't really a style that everybody could do. And it kind of hurt the game too as well. This documentary right here, it was so amazing. It was so influential. But now, like you said, the after effects of it skews narratives. Athletes kind of have put in their own perspectives instead of like having a more objective point of view about everything. So very, very, very amazing documentary for its great influences and for the influences that were bad, like you said. Amazing.
Yeah.
Agreed. Matt, anything else to say about The Last Dance?
No, he took it out. That's, you know, as a big basketball guy, that it was awesome. And then it also gave us the memes, man. Like how many, you know, all the memes that came out of that, like, you know, it's fun. Like, I feel like it got us through that initial shutdown period of life. It carried us, and that's how
Tiger King.
Yeah, that and Tiger King really carried us through some times, man.
It really did. Those two, like that saved us.
Yes.
Sorry that Tiger King wasn't a sports documentary. Else I didn't include it.
I know. Otherwise, that would probably have been like,
I know. Otherwise, Tiger King was another insane like phenomenon. Although weirdly enough, the impact of it, though like huge, wasn't like The Last Dance.
No, not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, you've got your second pick here.
This one, I'm going to go into the baseball realm because overly, I don't care about baseball. Like, it's just not a sport that I watch it by drinking a cold beer, you know, at, you know, Fenway or at an actual game. But otherwise, like, I just don't care about baseball. So it's very hard to get me into a baseball film. And I got to go with The Sandlot, dude. Got to go with The Sandlot because it's a staple of my childhood. One of my core memories is watching that, you know, with all your friends and then just quoting it all the time. And of course, it gave, like, everybody quotes "You're Killing Me, Smalls." They don't even know what the movie's from and they're quoting it half the time. You got Benny the Jet. You got the Sultan of SWAT, the Sultan of the Babe, you know, the whole baseball, like James Earl Jones is blind and they're trying to get the baseball back from the dog. Like, it's just a good old fashioned kids film, man. You know, it's just like, it reminds you of the days growing up with your friends where nothing mattered in a sense of you didn't have the crushing pain of being an adult, bills, worries. Like, summer was a time where we would all go out and play baseball together just about every day. It was baseball, football, basketball on that rotation as a kid. And The Sandlot was one of those reasons, man. It was just a movie that I love deeply, deeply. So I had to take that one because I like movies like 42. That's a good one. Rookie of the Year. Those are good ones, but none of them quite connect to me like The Sandlot does in this category.
I love The Sandlot. It's always been one of my favorites, but also to your point, like it brings you back to a time where, and we might be like the last bastion of this as millennials, is a time where we would just go out and play and do whatever.
Dude, I don't see kids in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I have very like secluded neighborhood that has a ton of kids because the school's right behind me. So I see droves of kids like my son's age walking home, and he's out there riding his bike. I don't see any kids out hardly ever playing.
Yeah, no, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it was just me getting old and be like, why don't kids go outside and play anymore? But I'll drive by baseball fields, you know, and they're empty unless it's a college team. I'll drive by fields that are just open that, you know, back in our time period, we would have been out there in those fields making something up, doing something stupid. And I don't see that anymore, man. And it really does kind of like, are we the last generation to kind of course, kids play outside, but you don't see them the way that we used to play outside.
Agreed. Yeah. No, totally agree with that.
It doesn't exist anymore, but I love The Sandlot. It's one of my favorite movies. And I get into fights with my friends. I will always say that I know that I have it in higher regard than I do the Mighty Ducks. So
I agree. 100% agree.
There we go. I'm not the only one. And because like it's the underdog narrative is so overplayed, where it's like The Sandlot one is it's a different kind of movie. It's about, you know, friendship and you know, and it is about getting older and losing touch with people too. I think it kind of hits on some, you know, more themes that resonate with both kids and adults. So
yeah.
I grew up in a military family too. And so I remember being that new kid a bunch of times and how hard and intimidating it can be making friends. That's just like, and especially if you start a new school, like growing up in, you know, I went to Bedford High School. So like, obviously you were bussed in from the base. And so like that whole new genre of meeting friends as a teenager was even, and then, as you grow older, people kind of grow apart and do things, but you still have like those fond memories of each other and you still loosely keep in touch. And that's just what this movie represents to me.
Yeah, I've never seen the movie, but just based upon what you got, how you guys are describing it does resonate. It could resonate at any age, really. It could resonate at any age, which, you know, I'm gonna have to give it a gander.
I can't believe you've never seen this. This man comes in with the Sultan of hot sauce, and he's never seen the Sultan of SWAT.
Yeah, Calvin, I honestly thought you
was like, away right now.
No.
Calvin's taking The Sandlot with that name. Give out.
No, I was not. I just came up with it. I was just like, okay, let me just put in Sultan of hot sauce.
No, this was some classic draft psych out right there. You know, everybody was talking about JJ McCarthy going third, and now that's what Calvin did. He was doing a psyop there to get you to take this a little higher than he needed to.
I had to.
I respect it. All right, so I'm up next. I've got 2 picks. I am actually going baseball as well. And there's actually some really
all right, just take Fever Pitch and get over with.
Oh man,
Fever Pitch. Wow.
Dude.
Wow.
Anybody knows me and knows I don't like Jimmy Fallon, so
I know that's why.
Yeah, you've never heard you say anything good about him at all.
You probably won't. And all right, so for this one, I am gonna go with I think it was Oscar nomination too, but I'm going with Moneyball.
Okay.
I love this movie. You got Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, awesome. And then what's his name? Chris Pratt as Scott Hatterberg too. So I've never read the book too. I know that Moneyball is based on the book, and I never read it, but I always gravitated towards the movie when it came out. Specifically because like I was really into baseball at the time like this came about. Like I was, you know, this was early 2000s. So when we think about being a Boston fan too, you think that's when we are literally going we're going after like it's in the thick of like the heated rivalry with the Yankees because they're at their peak, winning multiple World Series in the 90s and 2000. So like they were the team of the decade coming up, and it was like trying to overcome that and trying to overcome an 86-year curse, which was, like so I was really into baseball, and I remember this A's team in 2000. I think it was 2002, and they were stacked. I mean, like they were stacked in the fact that like they had great pitchers. This is my only critique of Moneyball, is that like they don't talk about how they had like 3 stud pitchers, and like that's part of the reason why they were really
that
good.
Team was stacked that year.
They drafted so well.
Stacked that year.
And it's crazy to look at how far they've fallen as an organization since then too.
Oh my God.
A's, right?
Yeah. They're the dregs of the league. They are like now they're going to Vegas, and Vegas doesn't even want them.
Vegas. Yeah.
There was a point where obviously Yankee fan, I hated you guys so much, but the one team that also kind of annoyed me, it was the A's at the time, because they were pretty fucking good. They were very fucking good. They would give us a lot of problems. And then lo and behold, now look at them. They're just like, why would you ever bring them up in anything that's significant for winning? It's
just like, nowadays they're not, and they never won. Like they didn't. The Moneyball method that they chose to do never won. Like, let's be real. Like, but it's interesting to see. And when we talk about like the effect that analytics have had on baseball as a whole, like there was like a time where it's like it's good for the sport, but it's also bad for the sport at the same time, because now it's like the nerds have taken over. It's all analytic driven, and the product has suffered a little bit. Now, granted, it's getting better because they've instituted things like the pitch clock and stuff like that to speed up the game. And thank God, because like it was great when we went to the Dodger game a few weeks ago, Calvin, and like that thing just flew by, and it was great. It was like, okay, I can come enjoy myself, and I don't have to be stuck here for 4 hours. I remember back in those early 2000s when I would go to a Red Sox Yankee game, I am there for 3.5 hours because they had, a bunch of hitters, all who were really good, all who would take strikes. But I think it's what this movie just highlights, like an important inflection point in baseball history. And it's a very entertaining movie as well. And I love to revisit it. I'll rewatch it sometimes too. It's a very rewatchable movie for me. So that's my piece on Moneyball.
That's pretty cool, actually. Just thinking about it, just thinking about how baseball kind of changed, like now in regards to, especially talking about analytics. It's hard because if you grew up with baseball, playing baseball and everything, then it's like, okay, we understand. Like we when you see baseball stats of players and things like that, obviously, like there's that aspect of baseball. But however, it got so analytically driven to the point where it was just like, and that's it. That's like that with every sport. Every sport has gotten very analytically driven to the point where it's just like there's no feel for the game anymore. It's just almost robotic in a sense. So like even like basketball, for example, the analytical nerds have taken over so much. And it said like, okay, this is how you win a basketball game. You have to shoot a 3-point shot, go in for the layup, but it's taken a lot out of the game, because obviously what made baseball, basketball, any sport really, what made it so amazing was just like the styles, the diversity of styles. And then unfortunately it's just robbed. I mean, now, like you said, now baseball is coming back, and it's now it's coming back, as is basketball to a certain extent, because now I see certain players actually having their own style, i.e. the Denver Nuggets. But yeah, to your point,
well, football even to a degree has been taken over analytical, because you see teams that, like, say I saw a team, it was 28-20, the team just scored, and instead of kicking the extra point, they went for 2 because the analytics said go for 2. And I'm just like, what the hell?
Oh, you mean the Detroit Lions who were they playing this year? Dallas.
The 49ers.
No, they were playing Dallas. No, wait. In the regular season, that game. It was stupid.
Oh, yes. That was dumb.
So annoying.
Oh, yeah, and they ended up losing. Yeah, it's just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, not to mention that that coach for the Chargers who went for it on 4th down every time, and it just drove me nuts.
Yeah.
The nerds are ruining some stuff, like, and it's driving me nuts. But baseball is probably the worst of it because you get such a larger sample size of a lot of data as
Agreed.
opposed to other sports, because you got 162 games and hundreds and thousands of at bats and pitches. So it's a little different, but I mean, it's just it. And then when they get in the playoffs, like, it's like, okay, you're not accounting for clutch and late. Analytics don't account for clutch and late, like, which is why, like, you've got to figure in some human factor to that, because these are human beings playing, not numbers you're just putting into a machine and spitting out. Like, they feel pressure, they feel the moment, and that is a very human thing, and you can't really account for that as much as you think you can. But
and you know what's so unfortunate about that? Just ending that off. What's so unfortunate is that players who come up nowadays, like, they look at these analytics and they also look at their stats like so deeply. I get it. Like, stats are involved in sports, but they look at it so deeply now to the point where it's just like, okay, like, hey, let me just see if I can go in this spot. This spot is going to improve my shot, or I have a better luck at this spot than other spots. Let me just keep trying and trying and trying. Like, it's, I don't know. It's just like you said. It's just robotic, and it just takes away a real connection for the game, really, for any sport.
Yeah. All right. We could go on analytics all day, because that's like a whole separate podcast. But so for my next pick here in the draft, I am going to go into boxing fighting, and I'm going to take Raging Bull in boxing and fighting.
Okay.
So this is my all-time favorite Scorsese film too. Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese, Joe Pesci, follows the life and career of Jake LaMotta, and very troubled guy. He was actually consultant on this movie as well, but a very troubled guy. And this is, I'm going to say this right now, this is bar none the best sports movie of all time too. But it's more of a character piece, because you're following somebody like Jake LaMotta, who you see him in the ring, and there's a lot of admiration for him because he's so tough and so driven in what he does, and does not get knocked down. But you see the complications that he has in his own home life, and you're horrified by him. Like, he's abusive to both his wife and his brother. And there's like this paranoia that exists with him. So it's, when you talk about things like, this paranoia of controllingness too, he's got that. And there's no better movie that I think captures both, like, the sports side of things and the human side of things, and the ugliness that can exist within something like this, that is tied together more like this movie. It's just, it's my favorite. It's my favorite Martin Scorsese film. It's his masterpiece. It's probably, it should have won the Oscar for Best Picture in 1980. It lost to Ordinary People. It's a crime. But anyways, it's amazing. And I will always have that as a special place in my heart for this movie, even though I will say this, guys, if you haven't seen it, it can be a struggle watch, because it can be very uncomfortable at points. So, but yeah, that's what I got to say about this. Have you guys seen this movie or not?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen that movie, man.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but that movie had some cringe moments.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, cringe is in, like, oh my God, like, what the hell?
Like, oh my God, like, holy shit.
Yeah. Anything to add to that?
Shoot. Well, I mean, the Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta is a legend. Just the fact that they covered his boxing, but also his personal life, very telling. Very telling. Like, his father, from what I remember, his father used to have him fight like other like neighborhood boys and stuff like that, like when he was a little kid. And growing up at that time, growing up in the Bronx, growing up in New York City at the time, like, poor family. Like,
Yep.
there's a lot going on. He had a lot going on also in his childhood too. He had a lot going on.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's there's this interesting moment in the film where it's sort of at the beginning and there's a fight going on, and there's a fight that breaks out into the audience and you can hear a woman screaming and the national anthem is playing as well. And it just like, I think it's a good point in the film where it's like, it's almost like highlighting like, hey, this intersection of violence and entertainment and even harm to women is like American. And I was just like, ooh, this is where Scorsese is a master. He puts something in like that. He's saying something in that, and it's for you to interpret, and I love that. So so that's what I got. Matt, you are up now for your third pick.
I'm going to go ahead and take a football movie, man. It's not one you're thinking of. I know you're probably thinking, you're probably thinking Remember the Titans. You're probably thinking The Longest Yard. Dude, I'm taking The Waterboy. Come on. You remember that time that Bobby Boucher shit up at halftime? And the Mud Dogs won the really Bourbon Bowl. Come on, dude. Like, it gave us she showed me her movies, not like them too. Like, there's so many good quotes. The medulla oblongata,
Captain Insano shows no mercy.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. My God. Mama's always right, and foosball is the devil. Like, I can quote this movie forever. It is like the most it's probably my favorite, honest to God, Adam Sandler film that he's ever made. Like, ridiculousness of it, just water sucks, H2O.
Gatorade.
Gatorade.
Oh my God, that movie is.
Did you poke me? He poked me in the eye. Like, it's so unhinged.
Listen, that movie is iconic, man. That movie is so iconic. The amount of times that people like quote that movie or just has something from that movie. That movie is long lasting.
It stood the test of time. There's nothing in it that's overly offensive in today's day and age either. Like, with a lot of the old comedies, like Charlie and I have talked about this, where there's some things that don't necessarily age very well, especially when they come to joke making. But I can't really think of anything in particular with this one that has really aged poorly in a comedic standpoint. It's just everything, Henry Winkler's just staring at the coach across the sideline, picture him as a baby. There's just kick his ass, or you can do it. Fight his freaking head up, and just like all of that.
Rob Schneider's what aged poorly. It's just because he's Rob Schneider's out now.
Rob Schneider. Oh man.
He's gone from making decent comedy movies with Adam Sandler to now grifting on Fox News. It's just like, what happened?
The fall from grace.
That fall from grace was Jesus Christ.
Just out of nowhere, man. You could have coasted in Adam Sandler's films for the end of time because he loves to make movies on vacation with his friends. Instead, you just opted to take a severe left turn somewhere, got lost. It's like when I get drunk and decide to wander off somewhere and my friends find me in the most obscene places. Like, that's what happened there.
Well, if we're in the South, Matt, I know to find you at Waffle House. All right.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But, this was a no-brainer for me. I didn't see it on the list. I was hoping it would go under the radar, and that's why I wanted to snag it real quick, because it's, when you're talking football films, the other ones are more serious. But this one is one you can it cheers me up anytime I watch it, just for the pure ridiculousness of it. She pulls out the little vial of Icelandic ice water or whatever it is from an iceberg, and just it revitalizes him. It's just so ridiculous.
Oh my God. That is so ridiculous, but it's so good at the same time. It's really aged well. It's aged very well. Like, movies in the 90s, it's weird because in terms of the stories, a lot of movies from the 90s are so good still. But in terms of some of the jokes,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's sometimes we're obviously coming from a different time. We perceive it differently, so we get it, we understand it. It was the time. However, translating it now, if one were to watch certain movies, it would be like, why would you watch something like that? But the Waterboy has stood out.
It's a great one. I love The
Yeah.
Waterboy.
Same.
Great.
Also, this just clicked for me. Adam Sandler kind of holding it down with the sports football comedies between this and The Longest Yard. So
Yeah.
he's got some good ones.
In sports in general, he's held it down.
Yeah. Happy Gilmore, obviously. So
Yeah. What was the other one that he had with Kevin Garnett? What was it called again?
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems. Yeah, that one was a great one.
I will allow that for basketball, by the way. I don't know if I put that on there, but yeah, because it's enough of it's enough in there, you know. Even though you're following, it's more the gambling stuff. It's enough in there, and it's a big part of the movie. So I will allow that if anybody chooses it. And so yeah, with that though, Calvin, you've got 2 picks.
Okay, so gotta go back to the fighting one. I have to go with Enter the Dragon.
Oh,
we must, man. We have to. So, fun fact. So Bruce Lee obviously had his own form of martial arts, Jeet Kune Do. So remember I told you Savat, like the fighting style, which trying to learn. He actually took a lot of influences from that style, from his kicking, from a kicking perspective. So if you look at, for example, like sometimes like he had like that quick like pivot up and then he would like have those sharp kicks going high up, or like the legendary like chest kick that he had against O'Hara. Those are Savat moves. So it was so insane how that was incorporated into it. He had books on that style. But for Enter the Dragon, I mean, look, that movie is iconic. That movie is iconic because it's one of those movies also which no matter what era, that movie is still holds up. It's still great. It's an amazing movie. It doesn't waste your time. It gets straight to the point, but it's a lot of fun. And again, it's like a movie which it really gets into the minutia of everything that's going on, but at the same time, it's also there are other things that build up between it. That's what I like about this movie in addition to the martial arts being displayed. This was Bruce Lee's for me, knowing Bruce Lee, like people could debate upon whether or not it's his best movie. I think it's one of his best, although I think he's had better ones in terms of acting. But in terms of just broadening him out there and putting him out there to a mass audience worldwide and solidifying his name, that movie is it. The elements in this movie are amazing. The martial artists from Jim Kelly, like legendary Jim Kelly, rest in peace to him. Like amazing film from head to toe.
It's like the one that, to your point, he might have had better movies, but it's like, it's the most important one for him to get his name out there. Like it had the most mass appeal of any of them. So yes,
I agree. It had the most mass appeal. And also again, it was done by a American like production team. When beforehand, Bruce Lee was predominantly doing his movies over in Hong Kong.
That's right.
So major.
Anything else to add, Matt?
No, it's pretty much it.
Let's take a timeout to see where we're at here. So far, we've all taken, I want to say at least 3 movies, right?
I've taken 3, yeah.
So we're about halfway through. So for me, I've got Slapshot for winter sports, Moneyball for baseball, Raging Bull for boxing and fighting. Matt, you've got The Waterboy for football, Sandlot for baseball, and Dodgeball for wild card. Matt's just going pure comedy route. I love it.
He's doing in there.
And for you, Calvin, you've got The Last Dance. You've also got the Leitner movie. What was it? What was it called again? I hate Christian Leitner. And now you've got Enter the Dragon. So that's where we're at right now. So Enter the Dragon for boxing, fighting, Last Dance for documentary, and I Hate Christian Leitner for wild card. So we're about halfway through, but let's get to the second half of the draft now. You've got another pick here, Calvin.
Now, which one would I like to go on to? Let's see here.
Calvin filled in his entire spreadsheet, so I realized I could have looked and like stole one of his if I wanted to.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I'm like, Calvin, you got to do it better. You gotta hide those picks. Come on, man.
I'm going to go with this one. Angels in the outfield.
Okay.
For baseball?
Yeah, I am surprised. That wasn't on the list either. I was surprised.
Yeah. I thought it was on there. Maybe I didn't add it. My bad. If I didn't add it, yeah, I don't know why, but yeah,
I just because I saw it, I just added it. I was just like, wait, let me add this one last minute.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you added it. Then good. All right. It's a good film. So why'd you pick that one for baseball?
I've had good memories with Angels in the outfield. Danny Glover, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I mean, it's a great movie which does focus on baseball, but also just about there's like a divinity aspect to it. Obviously, there's like a divinity aspect, especially like dealing with the Angels, the California Angels at the time, and then also just having an actual like angel like being there and giving like great luck to the team, like being there. Which also I think there's another side to baseball as well. Just going back into it, there's like sometimes there is such a thing as having the baseball gods with you, man. There is such a thing.
Yeah.
The sports gods with you, and sometimes they come down for you. Sometimes they give you this guidance and they just steer you in the right direction to win. And it's just a movie that always resonated with me because it takes upon that whole sports god thing, or like someone giving like that whole luck thing, because obviously like there are sometimes like teams which are like, okay, wait a minute, like they got this out of like sheer like luck right here. Like they had to have something on their side just to guide them. And that movie completely illustrated that. Also about faith. Faith, not even just like in a religious aspect, but just having faith in just whatever you're trying to accomplish. And that movie definitely was a major thing in regards to just having faith in yourself and believing in yourself. Great movie.
Yeah. I always liked it as a kid too. Like this was a good one. Also, sneaky stacked cast too, by the way.
Yeah.
Danny Glover, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Matthew McConaughey, Tony Danza, Adrian Brody, Christopher Lloyd. I mean, I was like surprised like how stacked that cast is. I'm like, oh wow, if this movie were created like early 2000s, that would have cost a lot of money. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, just a few years later, but like obviously McConaughey and Adrian Brody like weren't who they are now. So, but yeah, that's it was a sneaky, and then obviously JGL is a kid actor at that point too. So, but I always liked it. I always had fun with it. And like that was like the 90s when those early 90s when like some of those sports baseball movies came out for kids, like between that and The Sandlot, Little Big League, some of those other ones too.
Yeah.
Which were fun. But yeah, anything else to add on that one, Matt? Or you good?
No.
All right. You're up with your next pick now.
My pick. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if we're considering Uncut Gems a basketball movie, I have a feeling that this one also deserves to be a basketball movie because it takes place about the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan. That movie, Air.
Thoughts? I was thinking this might be a little bit of a stretch more so because you don't see any basketball in the movie. You know what I mean? Whereas like you do see a good amount of basketball in Uncut Gems. But I don't know. I'm willing to.
I was on
that to a vote.
I will concede to. I could see that because honestly, truthfully, I mean, Air, not from like just looking at it from a whole
game in basketball.
It changed sports in general.
Yeah, it did. It put Nike on the map. I mean, I'll allow it. Let's go for it. I'll allow it because I do like talking about this movie.
So. Okay. I guess I could have almost even used my wild card for that one in a way. But I didn't think about it because I was trying to play in my mind. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure out because it changed sports. You have this company and the way that sport, because it was like Puma and Adidas,
Converse.
Converse, like you were playing in Chucks back then, whereas now it was the first time somebody got a signature shoe, which changed basketball because how many of us were rocking Iversons? Now we got LeBron's, Giannis. Like every athlete has a signature shoe when they come into basketball predominantly. But even then, like it changed endorsements, right? Like look at the endorsement deal that Jordan signed with Nike versus like some of the other endorsement deals that people were taking at different periods. So in my opinion, I feel like this is more of a sports overall, I guess maybe, but it revolutionized sports.
As the commissioner of the draft, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I mean that I was in my head. I was like, man, do I want to take this? Like Space Jam obviously comes to mind because Space Jam's one of like the core memories of a childhood, right? It's Michael Jordan, and this was like his kind of return to basketball in a way. And then I was also like, Coach Carter's another very, very good basketball movie, but just Air from a fundamental standpoint, where you break down just changing the game. Overall, like that movie to me was one of the best movies I watched in recent memory. I fucking love it so much.
Yeah, totally.
It was so much fun watching that movie. Calvin, you saw it though too, right? Yeah, you probably. I was gonna say you definitely saw it.
The thing with them, see, it's one of those movies where anybody who's involved in sports in general, I'm talking about whatever perspective, like you have to watch that movie because major athletes now, the reason why their endorsements, I mean, athletes beforehand, they had their Converses, they were endorsing Converses and Adidas beforehand. And obviously Walt Frazier came out with his own shoe line, of course, but Michael Jordan really, really changed the game for everybody. He changed it to the point where it was like now the athlete himself or herself, they're the brand. Like they were the central piece of the brand, and they had such control over, not control in terms of obviously what they had to do, but in terms of just certain things would be centered around them having their own signatures, and also the amount of money that they would earn too. It totally helped athletes off the court having endorsement deals and things like that. That's an important movie. I gotta give, that's a good one. I gotta give you that one there.
Yeah, it is, and it's super entertaining too. Like Affleck and
Damon. The cast was stacked too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, all around.
Viola Davis too, and Jordan even said he was like, the only way like we're gonna do this is Viola Davis has to play him up. So, and she fucking crushed it. So
she killed it.
She was great. It was a lot of fun too. Like it was a funny movie. Like it wasn't like a serious film, but it was fun, and it flew by, and it was just like a good, like, it's one of those sort of mythologies behind it that I fully enjoyed as well. So, awesome pick.
That was a really good pick. I noticed like anything surrounding Jordan, there's always like a mythology behind it or a legend behind it. Always.
Yeah.
Some type of story to back the legend, Like it's just like, it's insane.
Yeah. He is like I think for us, like our legend, because we were old enough to see him.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right, cool. So I have 2 picks. So I'm debating whether or not, basketball is one of those where I've got a couple movies in mind.
Basketball's deep.
Yeah, it's deep. It's so hard. It's deep, man.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm actually going to go over into documentary, and I'm going to pick OJ Made in America. Yeah, this was.
I have to give the cold breeze for that.
Yeah, this was like I love this because it explores so much. And this is obviously it's cheating because it's a docuseries. So it's like you've got 400 plus minutes to explore, not just OJ Simpson, his career, his life before, he became a star, his career at USC. But it also goes into a lot of like the context of what was happening at the time of his trial and what happened before then. So like a lot of the racial tensions that were going on within Los Angeles, not just, obviously they even talk about before that with the Watts riots and everything like that, going back to the 60s. But they talk about, the like conflict between, the community and LAPD and how that was in the 90s and obviously what happened with Rodney King. And it dives into that a lot to give you some context as to, what the feelings were at the time and how it became like the trial itself almost became like holding up a mirror to America in a way of what was going on as far as that stuff goes. And, and OJ in this trial, in this sensational trial, which I, as a kid, was young during it, but I remember it. And I remember everybody talking about it and being swept up in it, but not understanding. And now as an adult, I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like I see why this was so big. This is what gave birth to court TV and everything like that.
Yeah.
And, and all of that. So it was, I found it fascinating to go back into that. And obviously, I didn't follow the case. I'd heard, I'm like, most people thought that he did it, and all of that, get into that a little bit, but I didn't know like the history of abuse that was actually going on behind that. Like, as a kid, I didn't know that. I wasn't exposed to that. So now seeing that, I'm like, oh shit, you start to see, and, you learn about patterns of abuse and stuff like that. So you can see where it all came from. And it was fascinating to dive into that. And obviously it talks about his downfall because, even though he was acquitted, or he was found not guilty, I guess, of the murder of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. He does end up going to prison for something else, and they gave him a hefty sentence as sort of like we got you this time, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but I found it fascinating. I rewatched it again recently because obviously OJ just passed away like a few weeks ago here. So, anything to add on this one, guys? Because like it's
I don't give a shit about OJ Simpson, so I have nothing to say.
Like I totally get that. That going back to what you said in regards to remembering that, I was a little kid, and I was 3 years old. Like the way that case went, it wasn't just for 94 and 95. Like the conversations about it went on for like several years afterwards, because remember he had a civil case too, which he was found guilty for. So that was something which was talked about, not obviously not as much as the criminal case itself where he was acquitted, but it was a major thing. And I'm listening to it. This was on TV constantly on TV. And I'm over here as a kid, I'm just thinking about like, was he like a sportscaster or something? Which I thought he was, but at the same time, I didn't know how deep his legacy was in regards to football and things like that. I didn't know that. So then I grew up, I was looking at it, watching it, and I was like, oh, okay. I totally 100% get it now. And like you said, there were a lot of, that movie highlighted a lot of things within LA, especially that was going on, from the Rodney King beating to the Letitia Harlan shooting, which occurred around that time as well. Yeah. And that one wasn't even that one was like by a Korean, it was in a Korean store, in a Korean deli. So there was also that tension as well. And then afterwards, obviously, with Rodney King and then the 1992 riots, which occurred, there was a lot that was going on in LA, but also this was a nationwide. It was a good way to just catapult the issues nationwide, because even even in New York, there were a lot of things that were going on racially, like the Crown Heights riots, of course, and it was that was really an interesting time. Like the early '90s, there was a lot of like racial tensions that really brewed over, and also with the police as well, with the communities. Such an amazing, that's an amazing documentary. That is one of the best documentaries. Like I have obviously Last Dance is my top documentary, but that one is actually for me. That one is number two.
Yeah, it
That one's
was.
number two.
It's super. It's it's just it gives you so much. So I that's why I like it, and I gravitate towards it from a documentary perspective because it gives me so much context around everything, and I appreciate that. That's what I'm looking for in anytime I'm looking at a documentary. So
Yeah.
all right,
No, for sure.
for I've got two picks, so this is my second. For my next pick, I am going to go to basketball, even though it's a little bit of a deep category here. I'm going. This is not the best movie on here, by the way, bar none. But I'm going to go with it because it's something I really liked, and it's sort of like a guilty pleasure movie. I'm going with Blue Chips in basketball.
I've never seen this.
Dude, it's a lot of fun. So
This was Shaq, right?
yeah, Shaq, Penny
Yeah.
Hardaway. There's a bunch of good star. Nick Nolte, obviously. So and they have like some it's a 1994 film, so we're staying in 94. But yeah, Nick Nolte, Shaq, Penny Hardaway, a bunch of good even Bob Cousy's in it. I always forget that Bob Cousy's in this too.
Yeah, a lot of Larry Bird's
Ed O'Neill
in it
is
too.
in it. What's up?
Larry Bird's in it too.
Yeah, it's Bobby Knight, obviously, Dick Vitale. So Rick Fox is in it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun because it's about basically like this coach going around finding all these blue chip players, and some of them he's got to pay for and stuff. So I don't know. It's just it's just a fun movie, and it kind of highlights some of the corruption that goes on with college sports. I mean, now it's not as bad because you got the NIL, and yeah, players can use their name and image and likeness, so they can't actually get properly compensated for the efforts they're putting out there and their brand potential. So it's a little bit different now, but that's how it was for the longest time. NIL is still relatively new. Like it's what, maybe 4 or 5 years at this point, maybe less than that.
Yeah,
so
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's not been around a long time, but it just highlights how dirty it was back then, what it was like. And then I just, I love seeing, I get to see Shaq and Penny Hardaway together again, early 90s, before Penny got injured, because Penny was the man. I loved him. Penny, and remember the commercial with Chris Rock, Little Penny too?
Yes, and they would even do it for the NBA on NBC. Like they would have that the little Penny, little Anthony. Like that was like for that time, because Jordan left, because Jordan, like, that was his first retirement, the league was really trying to promote the Magic however they can.
Yeah,
they're trying to promote him however they could. So when Jordan left, Shaq and the Magic, they were the next up because of Shaquille O'Neal's charisma and Anthony Hardaway, obviously. And they were doing whatever they could. Shaq at that time was doing everything. He had a platinum album. He had a platinum rap album at the time. Like the guy was like literally there was not a rookie or a player that was hyped since Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Other than him, maybe, I don't know, maybe Len Bias, but he never got to be a rookie. So that's about it.
Well, yeah, so, Len Bias. That was, we could go into that one too. That one is unfortunate as well. But but in terms of Shaq in the league and Penny Hardaway and the Magic, and also that was a great thing for the league to do, because the Magic, they were an extension team. They were expansion team. Excuse me. They were an expansion team.
Yeah. So, yeah, they were. They were relatively new, obviously. So, but But yeah, it's just a lot of fun as a movie. Like I'd say give it a watch. Is it a great movie? Objectively, no, but like it's still fun. And it just speaks to me. So I'm like, I'm going to keep it on here.
I get it. Anything with Shaq really is just like,
yeah. All right, Matt, you've got to pick now.
I'm just going to go ahead and take the low hanging fruit in boxing and fighting because I don't really care about this category, and it's Rocky.
I knew.
Honestly,
I was going to say, I'm like, are we going to go through a draft with nobody taking Rocky?
No,
I'll take it. Clear.
You got to take Rocky at one point.
Sylvester Stallone, like he did this himself. It launched him into his career. That's given us all sorts of. Without Rocky, we don't get like Demolition Man, which is absolutely ridiculous. We don't get like Dread, and we don't get all the other films. Rambo, yeah. So kind of like Rocky was what got, and it's kind of like a blue collar way of getting this movie made, and it's very much like the iconic steps of Philly. They got the Rocky statue in Philly, so it's like the most iconic thing to ever come out of Philadelphia since they threw batteries at Santa Claus, and I do like this movies, and then of course it gave us the Creed franchise with Michael B. Jordan, which are great, fantastic, amazing films as well.
Yeah.
So it kind of gave boxing some life in a way that boxing is one of those things that like used to be a lot bigger than it is now, and it's kind of gone through dips and waves. And I think Creed's given it some legs again and things like that, but. That's why I got to go with Rocky, man. Like the other ones on here, I thought about Iron Claw, which is a very, very good wrestling film. If you haven't watched that, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's the one with Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White, right? I still haven't seen it yet, but I heard good things.
Absolutely incredible film. Sad beyond belief.
Oh man. No, I 100% agree. Rocky was major, and like along with Enter the Dragon also, and it came almost around like the same time. I think they came out what
76,
4 years, 76 for Rocky, 72 for Enter the Dragon. So 4 years apart. That was also another major movie, which really reignited America's interest in boxing, because then afterwards you had the Four Kings out. Obviously, you had the come up of Sugar Ray Leonard. Then you had Marvin Hagler in these movies. Like it reignited America's interest because Muhammad Ali was on his way out. So they kind of needed something to kind of give it a little boost. And again, for Sylvester Stallone's career, this is his most important movie. This is the most important movie, which allowed him to obviously create all the other movies we know him for and we love him for as well. But no, that's and I think the underdog, once again, I know the underdog story is so overtold, especially within American culture, within American society, but that really crystallized that American underdog story. And when people, obviously, Rocky's past, like people never thought he never thought he was going to amount to much. People never thought he was going to amount to much. But then he took upon boxing. He had someone who supported him, and he became eventually down the line, he became a world champion within the series. So yeah, no, great movie.
Is there one specific sequel you want to have represent you, or do you just want to take
It's just Rocky 1. Rocky 1.
Just Rocky 1?
Oh, yeah.
It's the best one. I mean,
you could never go wrong with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also the one he doesn't win too. So it's like
exactly like it was one of those moments like, oh wow, because you got to think like during this time period, how many times are you seeing like the good guy coming out on top, like Star Wars Empire Strikes Back? This was before that. So like obviously the bad guy wins there. And then with Rocky, he loses in this one too, but it still comes out triumphant.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Also, by the way, in terms of like that particular fight, so interesting, the perspectives when you see the movie down the line, when you see the sequel, the second one, so interesting what Apollo Creed thought about it. Yeah. So it was absolutely an amazing film where it was great. Like the good guy didn't win. You're so accustomed to having the good guy win all the time. So then there's a movie which, realistically speaking, like he was going up against Apollo Creed at the time, and Apollo Creed was the champion. So, and he had been the champion for quite some time. So it was like, yeah, it makes sense within the film. It makes sense that he wasn't going to win per se.
Yeah.
But by the way, love Bloodsport. Love that you put that there.
On the list. Yeah. Yeah.
I was watching it yesterday.
It's too bad you've already used your wild card, or else you'd be able to take that. So
no, I like it, but I cannot take it just for based on one reason. I can't take it because of Frank Ducey was a liar.
All right, fair enough. All right, Rocky is officially off the board. Sort of a fell down the draft board situation.
It did.
It really did. I think that's just because, when we talk about the boxing and fighting genre, it's one of the better sports for a movie, because you get to focus on a character as opposed to multiple characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And they are usually battling something internally, and the boxing ring is a great metaphor for that. So it's highlighting those struggles. So I think that's why, like, you see the boxing fighting one be kind of like one of the more stacked categories, is that it works great for cinema and storytelling in general. So, all right, Calvin, you have what, 2 picks here? Is this your last 2?
I believe,
or last one? I forget. I think you got maybe 1. Or
I have 2 picks left. So
let's see. Okay, let's see which one I'm going to go with right here. I think I actually have 2. I have 2 picks. So let's see. I'm going to go with the Mighty Ducks. I mean, listen, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with that one. I mean, Emilio Estevez, and then you had a young Joshua Jackson in that film, which was so sick. And then look at what the movie, honestly, I mean, the Mighty Ducks, you also had the show that came out for it. And then the team obviously came out around that time too. That movie, and it is not analyzed enough. I mean, from the movie itself, it's obviously a really engaging movie. It's a cool movie, like, especially if you're a young kid, like, especially it's a great watch. But that movie had such an impact on just things that to come down the line, whether it may be from obviously the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, like the hockey team, obviously, or the show that came about. And it was a great way for hockey to kind of push itself onto really just have its own message or its own place within American mainstream society. Because, I mean, think about it at the time, like hockey obviously is like very well known, like in certain states where you can play ice hockey and things like that. But but for other places, it doesn't have the same appeal as much. So when that movie came out, that did give a good highlight to hockey in general. And then look at what it crafted, look at what it created afterwards. Great movie within and of itself. Emilio Estevez, obviously, he was doing his acting chops, and then Joshua Jackson. Before I had him, like, I got introduced to Joshua Jackson actually on Dawson's Creek, but then I saw the Mighty Ducks again. I saw Mighty Ducks again. I saw Mighty Ducks, and I was like, oh shit. Like, he was in it. Like, I was just like looking at it, I was like, what the hell?
I know. I always get thrown off with him in there. And then the kid from Pete and Pete, Danny Tamborelli.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, Danny Tamborelli. Oh man.
Before Pete and Pete. And then obviously you get a D2. There's a few other ones, you like Kenan Thompson's in that one and everything. But yeah, I mean, like, this is kind of like a wild time, because like we had the movie come out and then the sports team came out after that. So it's like, and also the jerseys that the original Mighty Ducks had, like, that are in D2.
Jerseys ever, man.
Oh man, that's like a top 10 sports jersey for me of all time. I love it. Absolutely love it. It's anytime I see it, I get hyped. So
the misses, like, I have a black one, because they at that it was a couple years ago, they started actually going back to the original design. She took my jersey Literally, and I had that customized. She took my jersey. She was like, "Oh, it's mine now." And I'm like, "Well, okay. Like, I mean, it's yours. I mean, I get it. It's so dope." And and again, like it, so iconic. And this is when I feel this is when once again hockey was really pushing itself onto the American mainstream. Like not just like in its several localities where obviously it was known, but also just around the country in general to try and ingratiate it with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good time. Simpler
Yeah, no.
times in those early 90s. All right. I think you've got another pick here, right? So
Yes, I have one more. Wow. So this one I was
so wait, what are your picks so far? Because you filled out your sheet ahead of time. So you've got obviously Angels in the Outfield, Enter the Dragon, Mighty Ducks, Last
I
Dance,
didn't do my
and then
shit,
I hate Christian Laettner one, right? So
yeah. Oh shit, I didn't do my basketball one. Oh,
so
shit.
okay, so you've got so after this one you'll have one more pick, right? Because
Yeah.
all right, cool. I was like, wait, did I do the math wrong on this? I'm like, what's going on here? So, all right. So yeah, go ahead, pick whatever. And then you've got like one last one at the end.
Okay. So for basketball's deep. So deep. This one was really hard, but I had to go with Space Jam, honestly. I cannot.
Good choice.
I can't.
Oh yeah,
no,
that's a classic.
That is the classic, and that's really listen. That movie is so fun. You could still watch it even now. It's such an like objectively wise. Was it like, oh my gosh, like in terms of the acting chops and things like that? Was it like, oh my gosh, stellar? No, but the charisma of once again Michael Jeffrey Jordan really held up the film. And in addition, having the Looney Tunes come in, Looney Tunes is also an American staple. They're just coming in and just trying to enlist them and trying to help them out before they get decimated by the Monstars. The Monstars. Those are great for me. It was looking at the movie, like they were pretty good antagonists.
Yeah.
And you can't even really call them like really straight up bad guys. Like they weren't straight up bad guys. They were just like antagonists really, who were just put in like a whole crazy situation by Swashhammer, who was played by
Danny DeVito.
Yes, Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito voiced him. So they had a lot. Actually, when you look at the cast, they also have some great names too on that. Not just Michael Jordan, but Danny DeVito. They had Wayne Knight over there.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Let's start there.
Yeah, let's start there. Yeah, Bill Murray, and that guy at the time, he was ranting about Chicago. He was saying all types of stuff because he was such a major Chicago Bulls fan.
Yeah.
If you look at certain things he was saying during that time, he was just pumping his chest out because of Jordan. So, great movie.
Yeah, I always love that one. Is it also sneaky good soundtrack too, somewhat. So I used to
dude, that soundtrack bombs, man.
That soundtrack bumped. That soundtrack went like, I think it went like triple platinum or something like that.
I had the CD growing up and everything, dude.
Quad City DJs, they had that song at the beginning. That was
Everybody get up is
there you go.
and then they had the Monstars anthem.
It was like Coolio, like Method Man, like
Busta
all
Rhymes.
These amazing Busta Rhymes, like all these amazing rappers too.
Yeah, and they had like D'Angelo, and they had Monica. They had Monica. I was like, honestly, when you look at it just objectively, forget like when you don't look at the movie and just look at the soundtrack, I'm like, dude, like. That is a stellar lineup. We're
also forgetting the big one. Obviously, he's had his problems nowadays, but R. Kelly's, I believe, Can Fly. So.
Yes, that was what. Yes, oh my lord, that
was a jam. But at the same time, like R. Kelly's, all right, we're not going to pay R. Kelly. He's a touchy subject, but overall, that soundtrack bumps. Yeah. It really does. All right. Matt, this is your second to last pick. What we got?
I'm going to go hockey, man. I'm going to take Goon, Doug Glatt.
I knew you were going to take it. I knew it. I wasn't gonna steal it from you. I was like, this is it, because that would have been my other pick. I fucking love that movie, dude.
I love
So
this
much
movie,
fun.
dude. It's like he learns how to skate because he can fight really well, and it's like the last true because enforcers are dead in the NHL, right? It's a
Yep.
dead like fighting's kind of they're trying to phase it out of hockey, and
Yeah.
it's a great comedy, man. It's just he goes out there and he's just there to fight, and it's also got I forget the guy's name, but he played obviously like Sabretooth and the Wolverine movies. He's
Dude, Lee Shriver.
yeah, that's what it is. God, I forgot his name. Yeah, Liev Schreiber's in it. And,
I thought when you said Sabretooth, like in the X-Men movies, I thought you were talking about like Tyler Mane or whatever.
No. Yeah, he played him in like the Wolverine films. As his, what that those ones we all tend to forget. But I mean, it's Sean William Scott, and he's great in it, dude. And you see Doug Glatt jerseys everywhere still today. And
Yep.
yeah, this movie, I just love it so much. Absolutely adore this movie.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Jay Baruchel, obviously Eugene Levy.
Yeah.
Love Eugene Levy and just about everything.
Same.
Oh man, who was the there's one guy who was like a well-known Matt, you probably remember. You remember he was like a pretty well-known fighter back in the day.
Yeah, his name is Sean Thornton. Come on.
No. He wasn't on our team.
I don't remember.
He was he's one of the players he fights against. Oh my god. Oh, is it Georges Laraque or whatever?
Maybe.
Remember he's the he was the big dude for the Canadians who would be a big fighter back.
Oh yeah. I forget his name, but yeah, I know
Georges Laraque. And he was like, and then he has that conversation with they get into a fight and he's like, hey, you want to go? And they're like, yeah. And they're just like, okay. And it's like, oh, good fight afterwards. He's like, and then he goes, wow, that was a nice guy. Because like that's how Georges Laraque would actually fight in the day too.
Yeah,
like that's all he would do. It's like, hey, you want to go? And like
and the fight scenes are like really good too, like really bloody, really up close. Man, it's wild.
it's such a fun movie. Oh man, I love the shit out of that movie.
Definitely need to watch that movie.
It's good. It's good. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Was that all right? So I've got my last two picks here, and I've got wild card and football left. So
you building up here.
Yeah. So surprisingly enough, like football kind of had like a bit of a stacked category. So all right, for football though, there's one movie for me that sticks out more than any, and it's Any Given Sunday for me.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Very good choice. Yeah.
It's Any Given Sunday. Oliver Stone, Steamin' Willie Beeman. It was cool because they actually had like some real football players in this too. Lawrence Taylor was in it. I think Ricky Waters was in it. Who else? Terrell Owens actually was in it, and he's just you don't see him on screen as much, but like you'll see like he actually does a lot of football stuff. So T.O.'s in it. Yeah, so some obviously some football coaches and old football players were in it as coaches. Dick Butkus was one of the coaches. Johnny Unitas, I believe, was one of them, and even old coach, what's his name for the Dallas Cowboys back in the day? Not Jimmy Johnson, but Tom Landry. Tom Landry.
Yes. Legend.
Yeah. Al Pacino, obviously, and this movie is like a long movie, so I remember. I went to see this when I was in like 7th grade and I was hyped to see this too. So I went to see it in theaters. And it was one of those, obviously late 90s. I'm not old enough to see this in theaters. So good old Pops comes in and gets us the tickets and then screws off basically, which is great, So yeah, we end up going to see it, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Long movie, but like we had a great time seeing it. And it's one of those too. It's like it's very stylized. Like it feels like a music video, almost like a 2.5 hour long music video. They're always cutting to like other scenes and fast cuts. I mean, dude, some guy gets his eyeball knocked out in it too.
Yeah.
They're having sex with like girls in a bathroom too. I'm like, oh man, this is I'm like, is this what it's like being a pro athlete? Like, what's going on in here? It's a great
I mean,
cast.
not far off.
It's a great cast too. Fucking what's his name? What's his name?
Al Pacino,
Jamie Foxx,
Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz, Al Pacino, Dennis Quaid. Yep.
Oh my gosh, Elizabeth Berkley, Aaron Eckhart.
That's right.
Like, so
Elizabeth
insane.
Berkley, some Jesse from
some Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell boobies in there. All right, I'll take it. But I mean, I always love this movie. It's is it the best of the football movies on this? Probably not, but it's the one that speaks to me the most, and I got to stay true to myself. And
entertainment value.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Also, I love the shit out of it. So
also Bill Bellamy was in there.
Oh, was he? Oh, and then James Woods is in it. Yeah.
That was an all-star cast. Like,
it was great cast.
Great cast. Like great cast. Like you could like it's not even so much you're talking about like great cast in terms of like the acting chops, but just in name recognition. Like, these are some heavy names here.
I always forget Jim Brown is in it as one of the coaches too. Matthew Modine is in it.
That's so insane.
Yeah, it's just
and they had Warren Moon.
Yeah, Warren Moon's in it. I love it. John C. McGinley too, who's like always that guy. You know, he's in a bunch of stuff. He's famously in Scrubs, but then he's like always that actor.
And Emmett Smith.
Yeah. He's in that. Emmett Smith's in that.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Aaron Eckhart too. I forgot. Aaron Eckhart's in this. All right. Anyways, I could go on for this movie, so that's what I'm going to take for football. And I saved Wild Card for last, and the movie that I'm going to take for last in Wild Card is going to be Caddyshack.
Okay.
It is
interesting.
One of the funniest movies ever. One of the most infinitely quotable movies for me. I will always go around quoting Rodney Dangerfield in this movie. Oh my God. He's hilarious in this. I love Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh my God.
Oh, if you get a hat like that, you must get a free bowl of soup. Hey, we're all going to get laid.
Bill Murray's in it too.
Yeah. Bill, I mean, talk about that. Chevy Chase, when he was, when he was, getting along with people in Hollywood, or at least
was he actually?
I don't know if he ever was. But he can actually make the movie at this point. He's hilarious in this. This is like one of the most quotable movies of all time for me too. And I cannot stand here and live with myself without Caddyshack being taken. And you guys already have your wild cards, so this was my chance. This list is complete, and it speaks for me. So I had to go with that. I got to give my man Rodney Dangerfield some props here. I could have gone with Ladybugs, that's the other one, but that he's done. But Caddyshack's really where it's at. So that's it.
It's fair.
Matt, you're on your last pick, right?
Last pick, man. This isn't the best documentary ever. I saved this one kind of for last because I knew it would not be taken. But this one holds a special place in my heart, man. I'm going to go with the documentary about the Redeem Team, the 2008 United States men's Olympic basketball team. They're coming off a disappointing 2004 Summer Olympics where they get bronze. They're coming off just an awful 2006 FIBA World Championship. They're a mess. And this team also featured, like Jason Kidd, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Dwight Howard, Chris Bosh, Chris Paul, Carmelo, Carlos Boozer. Like this, every like who's who growing up watching basketball, man, was like on this team. It was stacked. And it was this air about them. There's a documentary going into how much pressure was behind them going into this Olympics where they ended up winning gold, and kind of that rise back to dominance, because it's like USA basketball. You're not supposed to lose. You're supposed to basically win gold. And now looking at how European basketball is caught up to modern day too. So from where they were, like European basketball could not even have touched in the early 2000s to where we're at now. So it was interesting, man. All these personalities, all these star players. You have a very young LeBron James, and it's just was fascinating to watch, man. I love it. I was a big basketball fan. That I had to go with this one as my final pick because it just holds a special place in my heart.
That was a really good one. That was a really good one because it was also a great homage to Kobe as well.
Yeah.
It's also a great one to Kobe too because it emphasized his really his role on the team and just the importance of his leadership and his dedication for that team to kind of obviously have that redemption and win our gold. Very, very interesting. Usually it's weird. A lot of times whenever we go into cycles with this because there are times where just American like basketball in general, like if we're in the let's say we're obviously in the Olympics and then sometimes we just kind of, either we take our foot off the brake or we kind of get a little bit too complacent, or for the special case for the Soviet Union, you have like pros in that time they're playing against like college kids.
Yeah.
Which is why the 1992 Dream Team came about. So then it's weird how American basketball just goes into like these major times of like dominance, and then they kind of just get too complacent, not because the talent isn't there. Everybody knows that the talent and the skills are just they're there, but it's just the complacency. And then you have one team that comes back and just reignites that American fire to just compete. And I think for Kobe, for the Redeem Team, it was a great homage to Kobe, not only just as a player, but also as a catalyst for that Redeem Team.
I mean, he comes out there, he pops, Pau Gasol, like his own teammate, to set the tone for like, nah, I'm here for business. And then it also makes me think about this year's coming up Paris Olympics team, because it's going to be the final time we see LeBron James on an Olympic basketball team. This is the final time you're going to see Steph Curry on Olympic. It kind of has that air about it again. Like this is a final ride for a lot of guys, just like 2008 was so vital to American basketball. I feel like this year's is also almost as vital because for these players who have been staples in the game since the early 2000s, for some of them like LeBron, like this is it, man. This is almost an end of an era.
Yeah, and these playoffs, especially when you look at the playoffs, and like that, especially signifies that end of an era, and where they're having a younger generation come up and take over. So this is almost like their swan song, similar to obviously 2008 and similar to 1992, where Bird and Magic, like they had their swan song too. They left. They obviously Bird's back was given out on them, and then obviously Magic with his announcement, his HIV announcement, he had to retire from the game. So then Jordan was the one who won in 1992, so he won 2 championships, so he was the centerpiece already. But then it was also a new crop of players who came with them, such as Patrick Ewing, John Stockton, Karl Malone, like the list goes on and on. So that Redeem documentary, great pick.
Yeah, and now it's similar now to like where you look at. So it's LeBron's last one, it's Curry's last one, and then you've got players like SGA and Jason Tatum and
Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards. Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of like that right now. So, so it's kind of cool to see that, and you've got a lot of great talents in other countries as well too. So
who are also in the NBA, like Nikola Jokic, who's going to be there.
Luka
Doncic.
So that's basically also that's also like a reflection point too. When you look at the Dream and the Redeem Team, that's like a reflection point when you see all that talent, because that was the point anyway, to have these countries know, not only just to show how great we are at basketball, but also to kind of have other countries develop their own players and then bring them into the league. You like the amount of people around the world who were influenced by Michael Jordan after the Dream Team, similar to just like in 2008, like with Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, like it's immense.
Yeah. It's it's unbelievable. I do love that pick. So I'm kind of jealous I didn't think of that one. But anyways, Calvin, this is your last pick. So
yes, so I have the football one, and let's see, I have Varsity Blues.
Nice.
all right.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, it's a great movie, has a great edge to it. I really like that whole, obviously James Vanderbeek. Are you, by the way, are you still mad at stuff about that the whole thing with the James Vanderbeek choice?
No, we won't talk about that.
Oh my God.
So
But
Matt,
yeah,
just for some context, we were playing a game. I think it was like Salad Bowl, and one of the questions was like, or one of the people was James Vanderbeek, and like you could say something to give him away, and nobody said Dawson from Dawson's Creek or something like that. And I was just like, that's his main character.
That's
like
his main, yeah.
Like that's what he's known for. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Calvin. Sorry.
oh my gosh. But yeah, no, that movie, that was a great movie. You had this really popular football player, and like he had obviously all the acclaim, but he was just like, he just wasn't satisfied with whatever he had. He just felt like there was more. I think that's like, from a generational perspective, I think that's a great movie for Generation X. That's a great movie
Yeah.
to kind of describe.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of those like it's a cult film, and it's a very popular cult film, especially among like Gen Xers, because I mean it's kind of like you have those movies which obviously they give you just a snapshot of like a generation. Like obviously you have movies that come out like all the time within generations, but there are very few movies that can actually give you like a snapshot of that particular generation. That was this movie, or one of them was this movie.
It was, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, great cast. You've got obviously James Vanderbeek, Paul Walker, John Voight,
Ron Lester.
Scott Kahn, obviously.
Yes.
Amy Smart too, as his girlfriend.
Yep.
Allie Larder. It's one of those typical like late 90s cast, but like it was a lot of fun. I always had a good time with that movie. So Varsity Blues is something that I always liked a lot. So and yeah, it's something that like is interesting that movie talks about is obviously like injuries in sports and how it's dealt with in football specifically, even at like a high pressure high school level they're talking about. So
yeah, no, that's definitely, that was one of the great parts of the movie, just discussing injuries in regards to the football game, because I mean it was a great precursor. It was a great precursor because in the 2000s, obviously, CTE became more of a known thing, the impact of CTE. So just having that come down the pike as a precursor in regards to talking about injuries in football, and then like a few years down the line, now you have the whole issue with CTE. Well, unfortunately, the whole thing with CTE like really got big when the whole thing with Junior Seau happened. But
yeah, even before then, I think too, when the studies came out. But all right, that's it. That concludes the draft. So let's review everybody's picks here. Calvin, review your total picks right here since you just went.
Review my total picks. Wait. So, question.
Yeah, just review all your movies you done. You picked, so.
Well, overall, just reviewing my picks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, just list them out. List out all your picks so everybody knows what it is.
Oh, gotcha. So,
yeah.
So my picks overall. I mean, for football, it's Varsity Blues. Baseball, Angels in the Outfield. Boxing or fighting, Enter the Dragon. Basketball, Space Jam. Winter Sports, Mighty Ducks. Documentary, Last Dance, and my wild card, the awesome wild card, I Hate Christian Laettner.
Love it.
Nice,
Matt.
Football, I had Waterboy. Baseball, I had Sandlot. Boxing, I had Rocky. Basketball, I went with the controversial Air. Winter Sports was Goon. documentary, The Redeem Team, and then Wild Card Man, Dodgeball.
Good old dodgeball. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood. All right. And for my picks, I've got Any Given Sunday for football. For baseball, I've got Moneyball. For boxing fighting, I've got Raging Bull. For basketball, Blue Chips. For winter sports, Slapshot. For documentary, OJ Made in America. And for wild card, Caddyshack. So
solid.
Awesome. Everybody
Solid
happy with their picks? Nobody stole any picks from anybody. I think sports kind of covers a wide array that like we're not going to be, fighting each other over these picks. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good variety in terms of our picks. Definitely great. I was still the only thing I was just like, wait a minute. I was like kind of thinking, I was like, yesterday, I was like, would Bloodsport actually be included in this?
Yeah, I added it. I was a late ad, but I added it. I'm like, no, it's a martial arts tournament. Of course. Why not? That counts. Well, listen, that concludes. So what we are going to do is, now that we've done this, every one of us is going to put this on our socials for people to vote on. And so for us people or the people out there to see like, hey, what resonates with them the best, which one they like the best. And we'll just do that from there, and to get some more audience participation going, and obviously promote what we've done. So, but that concludes this episode of The Real Buffs. So, on behalf of The Real Buffs, I am your host, Charlie.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Calvin, the Sultan of Hot Sauce.
So long. Oh, before we sign off, actually, I forgot to do this. Where can people find you on socials? Matt, you go first.
Yeah, just search Matthew Tyler, 2 R's. That's me. Twitter, I predominantly do the other podcast on there. Instagram, I'm hit or miss. I am always lurking, rarely posting. That's where I'm at. You'll see me complain about sports a whole lot on my personal Twitter, actually. That's where you can find me complaining about sports quite a lot. But find me on those, man.
All right. Calvin, where can people find you?
So for where people can find me, you could, I don't know if people still go ahead and use this now as among our generation, but you can find me on Facebook on occasion. Sometimes I'll post something with sports. That's usually predominantly where I would have my sports taste. Or you could just find me also on Instagram too. So you could just find me on, let's see right here, because I also have 2 as well. You could find me young_Hollywood 19. And my other one is CA Bryce 417. So you could find me on there as well. But Young Hollywood is the one I usually use.
Cool. So for myself, obviously, for the Real Buffs podcast, find us on Instagram at the Real Buffs. You can also find us on Twitter X at @the_real_buffs for Twitter. And also, you can find me on my personal one at Sir_Charles_Mac. That is going to be my personal one. I will post it everywhere so that we can get max participation going on this. But that does it for this episode of The Real Buffs. I'm your host, Charlie, and we will see you next week for our month of a film that we're going to be doing, or a film series. So looking forward to that. Hit the trailer.
In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
It is by my hand! You arise! From the ashes of this world!
We are not things! We are not things!
Where is she taking them? I want them back! They're my property!
I want it to end.
What a lovely day!
Want to get through this? Let's go!
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.